The Iroquois Theater fire. The theater that was deemed absolutely fireproof. Opened on November 23, 1903 after numerous delays due to labor unrest. The Iroquois Theater was located at 2428 West Randolph Street between State Street and Dearborn Street in Chicago. The group that funded the construction of the theater strategically placed the theater in a part of the neighborhood with the Loop shopping district, hoping to attract young women. The shopping district also had a police station nearby that regularly patrolled the area. The Iroquois had a capacity of 1,602 people with three audience levels. The main floor, known as the Orchestra Parquet, had approximately 700 seats on the same level as the foyer and Grand Stair Hall. The second level, the dress circle or the first balcony, had more than 400 seats. The third level, the gallery, had about 500 seats. There were four boxes on the first level and two above. The theater had only one entrance. A broad stairway which led from the foyer to the balcony level was also used to reach the stairs to the gallery level. Theater designers claim this allowed patrons to see and be seen regardless of the price of their seats. However, the common stairway ignored Chicago fire ordinances that required separate stairways and exits for each balcony. The design would prove disastrous. On the chilly Chicago winter day, December 30th, 1903, an eager crowd of more than 1,700 patrons filled the 5-week-old theater. The crowd consisted of teachers, mothers, and children enjoying their holiday break. They had gathered to see Mr. Bluebeard, an over-the-top musical comedy starring Chicago native Eddie Foy. The theater was so crowded that some patrons from the standing room only instead sat in the aisles, blocking the exits. Filled with joy and cheer, and the large crowd would never have suspected that almost one-third of them would perish that afternoon. At about 3:15 in the afternoon, shortly after the beginning of the second act, sparks from an arc light ignited the muslin curtain, probably as a result of an electrical shortcut. A stagehead tried to douse the fire with the kill fire canisters provided, but it quickly spread to the fire gallery high above the stage. There, several thousand square feet of highly flammable printed canvas scenery flats were hung. The stage manager tried to lower the asbestos fire curtain, but it snagged. Early reports state that it was stopped by the trolley wire that carried one of the acrobats over the stage, but later investigation showed the curtain had been blocked by a light reflector which stuck out under the proscenium arch. A chemist who later tested part of the curtain stated that it was mainly made up of wood pulp mixed with asbestos and would have been of no value in the fire. It was soon apparent that the fire could not be contained, and many of the patrons on all levels quickly attempted to flee the theater. People exiting the gallery counted a crowd leaving the balcony level, and people descending from the upper levels met the orchestra level patrons in the foyer. Most of the fire exits could not have been opened due to the unfamiliar locks. The patrons panicked, crushing or trampling each other in a desperate attempt to escape from the fire. Many were killed while trapped in dead ends while trying to open what looked like doors and windows but were actually only windows. The dancers and stage also were forced to flee, along with performers backstage and in the numerous dressing rooms. Several performers and stagehands facilitated an escape through the building's main rear exit, which consisted of an unusually large set of stock double doors. When they were opened, an icy wind blast rushed inside, fueling the flames with unspent oxygen and causing the fire to grow substantially larger. Many escaped from the burning theater through the coal hatch and through the windows in the dressing rooms. Others tried to escape via the west stage door, which opened inwards and became jammed as actors and patrons pressed toward the door frantically, trying to get out. By chance, a passing railroad agent saw the crowd pressing against the door and unfastened the hinges from the outside using tools that he normally carried with him, allowing the actors and the stagehands to escape. Someone else opened the massive double freight doors in the north wall, normally used for scenery, allowing a cyclonic blast of cold air to rush into the building and create an enormous fireball. As the vents above the stage were nailed or wired shut, a fireball instead traveled outwards, ducking under the stuck asbestos curtain, streaking toward the vents behind the dress circle and gallery 50 feet away. The hot gases and flames passed over the heads of those in the orchestra seats and incinerated everything in its path, flammable on the gallery and dress circle levels, including patrons still trapped. Those in the orchestra section exited in the foyer and out of the front door, but those in the dress circle and gallery who escaped the fireball could not reach the foyer because of the iron gates that were closed during performances to prevent patrons in the cheaper seats from sneaking downstairs to the more expensive lower levels. This barred the stairways. The largest death toll was at the base of these stairways, where hundreds of people were trampled, crushed, or asphyxiated. Patrons who were able to escape via the emergency exits on the north side found themselves on the unfinished fire escapes. Many jumped or fell from an icy, narrow fire escape to their deaths. These bodies of the first jumpers broke the falls of those who followed them. Students from the Northwestern University building north of the theater tried bridging the gap with a ladder and some boards between the rooftops, saving those few able to manage the makeshift crossover. The Iroquois had no fire alarm box or telephone. The Chicago Fire Department's Engine 13 was alerted by a stagehand who had been ordered to run from the burning theater to the nearest firehouse. On the way to the scene, approximately 3:33 p.m., a member of Engine 13 activated an alarm box to call additional units. Initial efforts focused on the people trapped in the fire escapes. The alley to the north of the theater, known as the Couch Place, was icy, narrow, and full of smoke. Aerial ladders could not be used in the alley, and black nets, concealed by the fire smoke, proved useless. The police department became involved when an officer patrolling the theater district saw people emerge from the building in a panic, some with clothing on fire. He called in from a police box on Randolph Street, and police, summoned by whistles, soon converged on the scene to control traffic and aid with evacuation. After the fire, it was alleged that fire inspectors had been bribed with free tickets to overlook code violations. Days later, the Chicago Tribune ran a list of regulations that had been flouted by the Iroquois, including the lack of adequate fire alarms, automatic sprinklers, marked exits, or suitable fire extinguisher devices. Apparently, the theater had been visited by officials prior to opening. A captain in the Chicago Fire Department made an unofficial tour of the theater, noted that there were no sprinklers, alarms, telephones, or wire connections. Also, on-site fire extinguishers were a dry chemical extinguisher used in residential homes. The captain pointed out the deficiencies to the theater's fire warden, but was told that nothing could be done, as the fire warden would simply be dismissed if he brought the matter up with the syndicate of owners. When the captain reported the matter to his commanding officer, he was again told that nothing could be done, as the theater already had a fire warden. Also, an editor of Fireproof magazine toured the building during construction and noted there's an absence of an intake or stage draft shaft. There was exposed reinforcement of the proscenium arch, and there was presence of wood trim on everything. Also, there was inadequate provision of exits. The Iroquois Theater disaster killed hundreds and changed fire safety forever. The tragedy would be a wake-up call not only to the city but the nation, and lead to reforms in the way public spaces took responsibility for the safety of their patrons. It was the deadliest theater fire and the deadliest single building fire in the United States history, resulting in at least 602 deaths. The Iroquois fire prompted widespread implementation of the panic bar, first invented in the UK following the Victoria Hall disaster. Panic exit devices are now required by building codes for high occupancy spaces and were mass manufactured in the US following the fire at the Von Duprin Company. The second result of the fire was the requirement that an asbestos fire curtain or sheet metal screen be raised before each performance and lowered after to separate the audience from the stage. And then the third result was that all doors in public buildings must open in the direction of egress, but that practice did not become national until the Collinwood School fire of 1908.